You're listening to The Wounded Healer, Journeys into Amazing Health, with your host, Star Waters, the wellness and transformational podcast giving hope and restorative health to those who are sick and tired of being sick and tired. Now, here's your host, holistic wellness coach, Star Waters.
Welcome to episode 2 of The Wounded Healer, Journeys into Amazing Health. This is Star Waters, holistic wellness coach and your host. I have a question for you. Have you gone through tough time periods of your life where it feels overwhelming? Maybe it could be your health, your weight, depression, stress, or with close relationships in your life, where you just sense something just ain't right, but you can't put your finger on exactly what the problem is or from where it's coming. To others, your life appears to be just fine, even wonderful in fact. But to you, it seems like flashing strobe lights follow you wherever you go, and fog swirls around your feet as though you were in a Michael Jackson Thriller video. But no one can see what you're feeling. You're off. Something is not quite right. The situation goes on for far too long, and then everything crashes. You hit rock bottom. You can no longer fake the funk to the world that your life is fine, super, A-OK. You must at least admit it to yourself. You're in serious trouble. You have officially reached the next phase in the journey of the wounded healer. You've landed in the quicksand period. The more you struggle, the more stuck you become. Soon, fighting seems fruitless, so you come to terms with being in the quicksand. This phase lasts different lengths of time for each person. You eventually learn how to live with your wounded self because, after all, this is your fate. But something will happen to trigger discontentment with your situation, and you become sick and tired of being sick and tired. And you experience an awakening that lifts you up out of the quicksand and places you on solid ground. You are now energetic, stronger, healthier, happier, confident, and balanced once again. Voila! Now in your hands, you are grasping the magical solution to why you were off balance in the first place. Now, in your new awareness, you are able to sense the pain of others who are suffering just as you once did. You've reached the healer's phase in your journey. You now have possession of the magic healing balm that worked for you and will soothe the discomfort of other sufferers. They welcome your healing touch, and they are ready for your prescribed application. Divine healing is now in process. This is the journey of the wounded healer. Today, listeners, we are gifted with an amazing guest, Dr. Brooke Brimm. The Reverend Dr. Brooke Brimm is the founder and owner of the Whole Woman Retreat and Brooke Brimm Retreats. She serves the world as a metaphysical practitioner, minister, spiritual counselor, holistic life coach, author, and certified yoga teacher 200. Dr. Brooke uses meditation, yoga, creative expression, writing, and inner healing counseling to encourage women and couples how to get in touch with their inner voice. In her practice, she applies professional counseling techniques and her knowledge of inner spirit connection to lead others toward revelation and connection with their God self. She believes that every person has what is needed inside of herself or himself to live, love, give, and grow, and to be who they were created to be. Dr. Brooke is the author of 2 books, Love's Gumbo, Ingredients for a Loving and Lasting Relationship, and her latest release, Loving God Herself, yoga, and mindfulness for Black women who follow the Christ. She is a wife and a mother of three children, a native of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Dr. Brooke lives in Atlanta, Georgia. Brooke, welcome to the Wounded Healer podcast. How are you today?
Hello. Hello, Star. Hello. I'm well. I'm well. How are you?
Uh, I am just awesome. I'm just like tingling all over having you as a guest. Thank you so much. All right. Well, as I said, I'm just excited, and I just feel extremely honored for both myself and for the listeners that you are a guest today. So, again, thank you for coming.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation. You're welcome. You're welcome.
You know, Brooke, after reading all of your credentials, you just have such an incredible list of accomplishments. Can you tell us how all of this learning started for you?
How all the learning started for me. Well, I I guess I guess I would go back to the 8th grade. Okay. In the 8th grade, they asked in my class, what did I want to be? And at that time, I had limited knowledges of different helping professions that were out there, but I said I wanted to be a psychologist. So I went about my life after that. I got out of high school. I became a cocktail waitress. I did some retail work. And I said, hey, this is not for me. This is not going to work. And I went to college at the age of 22. And that first year of college was a lot like what I had studied in high school. I did 2 years of vocational training in high school for fashion design. So my first year of college was also fashion design. And at that time, it was because I had been out of school for a long time and I wasn't really the best student in high school. I knew that I was smart, but I wasn't really the best student in high school. So my first year of college was sort of like proof of concept, if you will. Like I found out that I could study at college level and I did pretty well. And after that first year, I decided I was changing my major. And so I changed my major to psychology. I did went through undergrad psychology and I crafted my own minor, which was called holistic health. And from whatever Georgia State University could offer, I crafted together what I considered to be holistic health, and that was sociology, medical sociology, medical anthropology. There was some human physiology in there, nutrition, and I think that was it. Maybe there was one or two more classes, but that's what I could craft together from what the offerings of a traditional university. So from there, I went to graduate school and I worked as a graduate assistant and I went to graduate school for professional counseling. During that time, you do a whole year of internship where you're actually doing counseling and I worked in a hospital setting on the mental health floor and also the geriatric mental health floor. So when I got done with my internship and I finished my master's degree, I said, ugh, this is not it. This is not what I want to do. I want to help people, but I don't doesn't feel like what I'm supposed to be doing. So instead of going into actual professional counseling, even though I had my master's degree, in order to become a licensed professional counselor, you have to do 3 years of counseling in the field and you work under supervision and blah, blah, blah. Instead of doing that, I went into research. So I did research in public health and in HIV prevention for about 4 years. So by this point, I had about 8 years worth of experience in research between working as a research assistant in undergrad, graduate, and then in the professional world in a corporate setting. Finally left that because I was like, this still is not it. But during that process, because I felt so thwarted and so boxed in, and so I was suffocating in the corporate environment. So while I was there, I started to become a jewelry designer. And so I went back to design, way back from when I started college. I became a jewelry designer And I also started making bath and body products. And I found that to be very healing to my soul. And I also did not know how I was going to get out of the corporate environment, but I started writing affirmations about, who I wanted to be and just how I wanted to live. If I can remember, it was something like I have creative outlets. My efforts, the work that I do is useful, because I felt like a lot of the work that I was doing in the corporate environment was not useful. Even though it was social science research and program evaluation for social programs, it still didn't feel very useful to me. So I wrote affirmations until I was able to get out of that environment. And from there, I went and I worked with my husband so that I could raise my children. We have an advertising agency together, which we still have. And that was convenient for me to work for him. I knew how to work with clients, and I needed more time with my children, so that worked out fine. During this process, I wrote my first book, and that's the Love's Gumbo Ingredients for a Loving and Lasting Relationship. And I wrote that book because just women would come to me all the time and say, how did you find a good husband? And I thought this whole concept of finding a good husband was like ridiculous, right? Because I'm in my marriage, in my life, working as hard at being Brooke as I could be, working as hard to being the best person that I could be, the best mother, the best wife, the best friend, and everything, and just getting in touch with God every day and grounding myself and balancing myself. And so this idea of finding the right husband or a good husband just seemed like ridiculous to me, because I knew that it's a matter of like attracting like, and what you build for yourself and what you believe in, you reap the benefits of that. So that's why I wrote the book. So I broke down, that book is about, it's a 3-part book. And I released it on Amazon, an ebook, 2011, but I had really written it between 2004 and 2007. It's a 3-part book, and what it was is about yourself, and then how to choose a partner and how to work effectively in that relationship. And since then, my husband and I, we do couples counseling, spiritual couples counseling for various couples in the Atlanta area. I am a wedding officiant, and so a lot of times we'll do the counseling before the marriage, but we also do just regular marital counseling and, premarital counseling and what have you, couples counseling. And a lot of it stems from what I wrote in the book. And also the program that I developed called Release the Young You, Live as the Real You. Long story short, after several years in advertising, which I'm still in advertising in a part-time way, I still do it, I went back to school to become a metaphysical practitioner, and that's where I gained my PhD. And so just really along the way, it's a long story, but along the way, I gained healing modalities, things that I felt worked for me in my life, things that I use with my friends and eventually clients. And that's how I started this path. So this is the reason why when you read my bio, it says that I use design and expression. Yeah, because I've always been a designer. I use yoga and meditation because I became a yoga instructor. And I just feel like working energy through your body is so important for your healing. And so what I strive to do through any of the modalities that I use is to get my clients in touch with their inner voice. And so sometimes you need to use your body. Sometimes you need to use a creative expression. You need to use journaling. You need to use talk. You need to sit out in nature. So it's a lot of things that you can use: music, movement, meditation. There are lots of things that you can do, but the goal for me is that self-exploration, and so that you can get to that core of your being and be in communication with the core of your being and release all the chatter and just really be in communication with that inner self.
One amazing one. I'm telling you. And I know this from a personal level because I met you in 2008. And at that time, you were doing a workshop for your book, Love's Gumbo. And I actually sat in the workshop because at that time we were at Sweetwater retreat area.
Right.
And it was a wonderful concept. I didn't have a mate, so I kind of was in it, but I wasn't in it. Now that I'm listening to you, I should have probably been more into it. Maybe I could have found a mate. I didn't get that what was it, like the cliff notes to the workshop or whatever. I should have been taking better notes or something, but I was just kind of sitting in. So when you offer that workshop again, please send me an invitation, please. Wow.
Okay.
Well, what I love
Okay.
about you, Dr. Brooke, is everything that you apply in your teachings are all so cool and out of the ordinary. I came to one yoga classes, meditation yoga, and first of all, I know what a yoga class is. I have a template in my mind what a yoga class is.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a meditator. Wow, I don't want to age myself, but I've been a meditator for close to 45 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a pretty strong template about what meditation is. But when I came to your class, it wasn't none of that. None of it. It was so original, so awesome, so laid back, so
Right.
smooth and silky. And it was so enjoyable. And once in the meditation yoga class, I loved it. But the surprise was leaving the class and a few days afterwards. Well, first of all, you had it in your meditation room that is upstairs in your home. And so, of course, you got to walk downstairs. I don't remember my feet ever touching the ground, nor do I remember my feet touching the ground for about 2 days afterwards. It was so spiritually elevating. What
Mm-hmm.
you got, it's good. And you are awesome. You're awesome, lady. Yes, you have such a way with whatever it is that you do, and you put such an original spin on just the simplest things. Like I said, I know what meditation is, I know what yoga is, and that class, it was all of that plus, and it was just, you left such a soothing tranquilness about my body and my mind that I didn't even realize that I was touching the ground at all for about 2 days afterwards.
Oh. Well, that's awesome because that is what I aim to do. It's so interesting that you said
Mm-hmm.
that the vibration was high because that is really, and the class that you're talking about is inner beat movement. And it's a combination of movement, meditation, singing, and music. And so I really tried to use, and I'll tell you, when I lived in Austin, Texas, Afrobeat meditation, and she used a lot of, I don't know, I have to look it up, but I can't remember. She was awesome, and she was in Austin, Texas. And there aren't very many Black people in Austin, Texas. So I would really look forward to that class, and it was about once a month. And she used a lot of techno music and that kind of thing. And I like that. But when I would leave the class, it reminded me that I've been doing inner beat movement with music and movement and meditation for years. And so I said, well, I need to make it into a formal class because once I left Texas, I didn't have it anymore. But I wanted it still to be more like what was personal for me. And I felt like it would be, in the South, in Atlanta, with the clients, my clientele is mostly African American women. I wanted it to be very relatable to what we're dealing with and what would be healing for us. So that's how I developed it. So music that helps us to process what emotion that we might be feeling at that time. Sometimes we feel collective emotions, like what's happening with our president. From day to day, it's emotions that we feel that are collective. You know what I mean? Like, depending on what's happening, what's being said, what's happening, you can kind of feel if we're feeling something collectively. So when people come into the space to do inner beat movement, then I have music that allows them to process those emotions. And sometimes I ask, how is everyone feeling? And based on what people say, then I have different playlists that I can use to adjust that. To address that. So I like to process the emotion and then have music and movement that addresses the healing of that emotion, and then music that speaks to the truth of who we are and the truth of our being on this earth, and that is that we're made in images of God, and that we're here for love, to give and receive. So I usually have music that, after the emotion has been processed, that then we just hear music about the truth of who we are and the truth of our being. And then from there, the music is meditative music, and then we go into complete stillness. And so then the real quiet part of meditation usually only lasts about 5 or 6 minutes. But it's the processing. We have to process and get our vibration, raise our vibration, throw off what's dragging us down, and then raise our vibration high. And then in that high state of high vibration, then we can move into meditation. And that's where the downloads are, and
Well,
that's
it
where all the good
works.
stuff is,
I know that. And thank you for explaining your method. But it don't matter. It works. And so for those listeners out there that live in the Atlanta area, I would encourage you to get in touch with the Reverend Dr. Brooke Brimm some kind of way, and she'll give you all of her contact information before we end this show today. But you are one fantastic, amazing, out of sight woman. So tell me,
Thank you.
because this podcast is about the wounded healer, is there something in your life that you overcame, maybe as a child or as a teenager or something, that at one time you were wounded in some kind of way, that actually you now have the healing balm to help others heal?
Well, yeah, I would say, Star, there were probably two major themes in my life that caused me that I healed from, and that guides my work today. Number one is when I was maybe about 5 years old. First, what happened is a close friend of my mother's was stabbed to death by her husband. And so that was a very traumatic thing to hear about, and to have happen in our lives. At one point we were at a birthday party with her. It seemed like just a week before, and then the next thing all we heard was that she was stabbed 32 times. So that was pretty traumatic. And then after that, less than maybe 8 months later, my brother was killed by a drunken driver. He was crossing the street. He was only 3, and so he really shouldn't have been in the street, but he was following my mother, who didn't know he was behind her, and he was killed by a drunken driver. So, and I was 6 and he was 3. So those two incidents of death kind of shaped my preteen years. What's the preteen years. Like, I was afraid of everything all the time. I was afraid of the dark. I was just afraid, just always afraid, just constantly afraid. And I don't know, I guess my freshman year of high school, well, actually, it started in the 8th grade. I moved to a new school in a new city. It was really my original city, but I moved back to a new school, a new environment. Everyone hated me. All the girls hated me. And I was constantly, bullied, harassed. That was 8th grade. And then 9th grade, the same thing. bullied and harassed, and I was still, carrying this fear, always afraid, on top of it. So I was very afraid at school, crying, nervous, just very, very upset until the next year. When I got into the 10th grade, I went to a boarding school for one marking period, and then it was too expensive for my parents. And so then I came home and I just didn't go to school for a whole year. Like, I just didn't go to school. And so when I returned back to school the following year, I had to have a discussion with myself about fear. And I had to say, now, am I going to let these people who dislike me, or the fear that they dislike me, ruin my life? I have to get an education. And, at that time I was about 16. And I knew I needed to get an education. I knew it was a non-negotiable, you know what I mean, about my education. And I couldn't just let the fear of attending school with people who hated me keep me from what I needed in my life. So I got the courage that I needed, and I went to school, and it really, that resolve, the changing of my mind that I was afraid, I decided I'm not afraid anymore. I'm just going to go. If everybody else can go and get along and do what they need to do, so can I. So that's what I did. I went to school, I changed my mind, and people didn't hate me anymore. For the most part, they didn't. And I gained, formed some good relationships. And I went on and I finished high school. I finished a year late, but I finished and all was well. So the fear, I let go. I still played a tape in the back of my mind for years that, girls hated me, that women hated me, that they're jealous of me, or I don't know why they hate me. She doesn't like me. That tape played in my mind up until probably 24 years old, maybe longer, maybe 26. I don't know, but in my 20s. And I had to overcome that and realize that there's way more love in the world for me than there was hate and dislike. And once I changed my mind about, the tapes that I was playing, and I think writing the Love's Gumbo book also was healing for me as well in that way. But once I changed my mind about playing the tapes that people hated me, then how I acted, how I walked into the room was different. How I interacted with women was different. And all I started to see was healing and love and good relationships and just, peace and wonder and sharing. And so from there, that really started my work with women, because primarily the work that I do is with women. The only time that I work with men is if they're in a couple situation and we're doing couples counseling, but primarily my work is with women. So once I healed myself of feeling that it was dangerous to be amongst people like me, women like me, then I realized I had something to offer to women like me, because we're not dangerous. And it's nothing dangerous about being amongst women. It's healing and it's loving. So yeah, those two incidents were situations where I was wounded and healed. And now I share that healing with the rest of the world. But I always say, because people call me a healer, and I make it clear that I'm not a healer, I'm a helper. So I'm here to help in a myriad of ways. And sometimes that is to show you your healing, show you the path to your healing, or whatever you need help with. That's what I'm here to do. I'm a helper. And the primary way that I help the world is by helping women. Because if I can help women, if I design a woman a beautiful piece of jewelry, if I give a woman a spiritual bath mixture that has the herbs that support her emotionally, if I make a scrub for a woman that energizes her and gives her the energy to keep going, if I make a hand sanitizer for a woman that she sprays that and it just lifts her up when her horrible boss comes to get on her nerves, if I have a session with women where we just get to their inner voice, if I have a workshop or a retreat, whatever I do for a woman, then I know that I'm doing that for her child, for her family, for all the people that she supports, because one woman supports a myriad of people, organizations, relationships. So that's the way that I help the world, is through women, by
That's
helping women.
beautiful. Well, I know that you speak the truth because I have been one of those women that you have helped. 2016, so about 2 years ago, in January, I was a
It was
member of the UNU workshop. Yeah, release the UNU workshop, and at
released the
that
young.
time, I
Mm-hmm.
was at my lowest as far as my self worth was concerned. I think one of the things that you talked about and we responded to as a group was who are we? What do we do? What are we all about? I can't remember the exact words, but I was like, I don't do nothing. I don't know nothing. I ain't nobody. And you quickly got me told and straightened out and mirrored to me audibly who I was, what I do, and what I am to serve the world and how I have served the world. And it was almost like a bitch slap for me. It was like it was a shock. I kind of
Mm-hmm.
wanted to look around and see, were you really talking to me? I'm all of that? Oh my God. And from that time, my life has soared. I mean, I have stepped into the new star waters that always was, but I'm just, yeah, that always was. Thank you.
Right.
You're a
That always
powerful
was.
teacher.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's what I do. I help you to see what always was. That's what. And it's funny that you said like a bitch slap, because sometimes, as you know, Star, and anybody who's ever taken that session, that journey with me, with releasing on you, or even couples counseling, it can be, yeah, sometimes it can feel like a bitch slap from me, because I am there to help you see what is right in front of your face that you cannot see. And sometimes that can be a difficult thing. You know what I mean? If you have a script that you've been playing that you've been rehearsing, and something that you've been playing and replaying in your own head, and you think one thing is going on and there's a whole nother thing going on, when I'm there to show you that the real reality of who you are and what's going on, a lot of times it can be a tug of war, because people, that we get addicted to our scripts. It feels good. It's some kind of comfort in rehearsing. Nobody likes me. People don't like me. It feels good. You can just relax in that negativity instead of living in the fullness of who you are, that you're created in God's image. And that's, when you hear that, you're created in God's image, and therefore you can do X, Y, and Z. You can make all kinds of stuff happen. There's some work in there. There's some responsibility in there. There's something to be done in there. So, a lot of times people don't want to be there. They want to be in the comfort zone of the reason why it's not working for me, and the reason why I'm not working is because of this script. So, many times I'm there to help my clients or participants, retreat participants, whomever I come in contact with, I'm there to help you see the reality of who you are.
A
And
little.
sometimes it can
Oh
be a
yeah.
little
Okay. I
jolting.
mean, listen. I've been in one of your sessions and I didn't see you make a person cry. Okay. So, and that's not. I'm not laughing at the situation. I'm just kind of thinking about what it is that you do, because what you do is you just break the connection of that script, and that's a good coach. That's what a coach does. So as you were talking, I was thinking about how being playing that script over and over again, it is like soaking and soothing in a warm bowl of pity soup.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. I do an exercise called the blanket exercise, and I made this one up where you take your script and you say everything that you've been rehearsing about that script. Oh, this happened and that happened, and I feel so bad, and you just keep covering yourself up with those words and this and that, and poor me, and blah 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 blah, and then you just stop when you're done with your whole script and everything you have to do, because that script makes you feel comfortable and warm. You just stop and you slowly unfold your arms wide, release your hands, and watch that blanket that's been covering you, that script. Let it fly out into the sky, far, far, and far away, and just let your arms be free and let your face shine up to the sky and just feel that. Now, that feels vulnerable. That feels vulnerable, but it also feels light and it feels open, and it's a place to, it's a place to start. Because the reason why we rehearse those scripts over and over again is it makes us feel safe. It makes us feel like, at least if I know that I have this going on, then I'm covered from whatever else I don't know. You know what I mean? But when I ask you to release that and let it blow in the wind, then you're out there and you're vulnerable, but then let the sun shine on you and warm you up and see where you go from there.
You talked about not identifying yourself as a healer, more so a helper. So, what I came up with yesterday as I was contemplating our interview is that you are a light worker.
Mm-hmm.
Do you identify yourself as a light worker?
Yes, I would say so, yes.
Yay! All right. Because I think that's the best description of who Dr. Reverend Brooke Brimm is a light worker. And thank you for coming to this place to shed your light
Mm-hmm.
on many dark souls.
Well, you're welcome. And do you remember this conversation that we had about the kind of light that I am? Okay, so I'm going to take you back to when you talked
Yes,
about the session where
yes,
I made somebody
yes.
cry. I think
In
we're
the
talking about
mountains.
at that retreat. Is that what we're talking about? Okay, at the retreat. We were at a retreat. I was a practitioner and somebody was rehearsing a script, and they had been rehearsing that script all weekend. the whole week. Yeah, and still, So they had been rehearsing the
Ooh,
script,
for a
and so
long time.
I
Before the weekend,
became
through the
a
weekend,
blinding
after
light.
the weekend.
And that is
Yes.
that is what you that's what you're referring to when you say, I've seen you make people cry. I can be a blinding light. And after that retreat, I remember feeling so bad because someone on Facebook had said on their Facebook post, and they weren't saying it about me or anything, they were just saying, Lord, help me to be a warm light and not a blinding light. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, I'm a blinding light. Yeah, I should try not to be a blinding light. That's not, nobody wants a blinding light. That's not what I should be. And then this was before the retreat. And then the retreat happened and that incident happened. And the next day after the retreat, I was feeling really bad, beating myself up about being a blinding light. And Spirit came to me and said, everybody can't be a warm light. Blinding lights have a purpose too. Blinding lights make you stop and quickly consider yourself. Quickly say, how did I get in this position? Why am I here? You know what I mean? Oh, let me cover myself up. What am I doing? And so that's kind of the way that I work. So not always. I don't always have to turn on the blinding light. Sometimes I can be a warm light or, just, but sometimes I have to be a blinding light. And that from that moment on, when Spirit told me that I have a purpose, just like Oscar the Grouch has a purpose, blinding lights have a purpose as well. I've never beat myself up about it again. I've walked completely in it, all the way in that role, and I embrace it. And like I said, I don't have to do it all the time. It's not I walk around doing it all the time, but when it's time, it's a gift that I have and I shine. Yeah. Brightly, blindingly if I have to. Yes.
Brightly. Yeah. Brightly. Right. Ooh, I've seen it a couple of times, but it is very effective. And you have to be able to do that to stop the script.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and if when that script gets stopped, you start considering yourself, what, why am I unsafe? What happened? Because this script is making you unsafe. Do you need it? Is it really what you need? And why is it there? Why do you have to repeat it? What are you gaining from it? And that's where the growth is for all of us, because we gain things from the negative things that we say to ourselves. There's something that we're gaining, and once we can figure out what that is and say, hey, I don't need it, that's where the growth is.
So, since a lot of times we experience things in our childhood that shape whom we'll be as an adult, the type of experiences that we will draw to us. Do you work with young women? Do you work with girls?
Yes, I do. I actually, this past summer was the first time that I did a Release the Un-You for girls.
Awesome.
And yeah, and it was free. I didn't charge anything for it. And what it was is it was my two daughters, and they invited a group of people, but it ended up being two girls and my two daughters. And so I've committed that I'll do it every summer now for free for whoever girls between the ages 16 and 25. Because people say, well, 25, that's kind of old, but 16 to 25 is adolescence. And so I work with adolescent girls, and actually I have an event coming up where I'll be doing yoga with younger girls than that, 9 to 14. And it's February 10th on Saturday. It's going to be at Tassili's Raw Reality in Atlanta, 1059 Ralph David Abernathy from 2 to 4:30. I'll be doing yoga with girls 9 to 14. And it's called Blossoming Brown Girls Present Self-Love. So I'll be doing that. But getting back to the Release the Un-You, what prompted me to work with the girls 16 to 25 is that my daughter had been at college, and it seemed like, we started getting feeling a little antsy about her coming home for the summer, because sometimes there would be some emotional outbursts and things like that. So we were a little nervous. So I said to my husband and my younger daughter, hey, we're going to do a Release the Un-You for you girls, because it's time. Because I feel like If I had had those tools, I put that program together over 20 years of working in my own personal work and what worked and what I studied in school and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But if I had had those tools at 16, 19, 20, 21, that would have saved me a world of hurt. so I put it together to get, because I said, it's time for my girls to get this in a cohesive way. Not just what they get from me every day from what I talk and when I'm talking around and what they see me doing, but like really sit down and get it in a cohesive way. So we went through 8 weeks and it was great. It started off a little rough and then it got, because I'm working with my own daughters, you know what I mean? So that can be a little bit rough. As a matter of fact, there's one piece of the program where you talk about your mother and how she handles problems or something like that. And a part of it, I just walked out of the session and let them talk with the girls so they could be completely honest about me. Yeah, because I was just like, you know what? Because we went around the room, they said their piece, and I was like, you know what? They're not being honest. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna step out. I'm gonna step out, and you guys say what you need to say without me hearing it. But anyway, long story short, we went through the whole 8 weeks. We had a closing ceremony. It was awesome. They made beaded jewelry, waist beads and whatnot. It was great.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
But the real change that I saw was with my older daughter. She's 21 years old. She put on her Facebook status just out of the blue weeks later after the class was over. I think that she said, I think a lot of what my struggles come from me not having enough gratitude. And that made me feel really good because I realized, because a big part of the program is gratitude. We talk about gratitude journaling and things like that for the Releasing on You. So I was like, wow, it worked. It's working. If she got to that point, and I don't think she'll listen to this podcast. So
Chances are she won't. The wounded healer, that won't catch her. That won't catch her attention.
But if she, anyway, I was very proud of her progress. And I will tell you, for most of the women that go through the Release on You program, or even we do parts of it at retreats, and I do parts of it here and there. But most of the women who go through the whole 6 to 8 weeks, I see amazing change. I really do.
I'm one of them.
Yeah,
I'm one of them.
I see so much growth, so much that they're putting out into the world that's amazing, like giving and growing. It's just amazing. Like my whole dissertation, you were in my dissertation group. My whole dissertation was written on, the before and after. And if I were to write a follow-up, it's even more. From after the immediate change, became even more. Because once you can start peeling away the layers that aren't you, the scripts that you rehearse and the things that you think that are you and things that people gave you and you didn't realize was given to you, that underneath of all of that is you. And, the you that was created in God's image, the you that is here to give something amazing, that is, meant to enjoy, live, love, give, and grow, that you. So I'm always really proud of what I see after I do that session or even after a retreat.
Well, you're wonderful. That's all I can say. I have so many words in my head, but I'm just letting those come out. You're absolutely wonderful. So hindsight is always 2020. If you could go back to the little Brooke and give her some advice from her future self, what would you say to her?
I guess I would say you don't have to fight. That's what I would say. You don't have to fight.
Awesome.
I always felt like I had to fight. And that's what I would say. Yeah, you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
All right. That's awesome. That's awesome.
I might need to say that to Brooke now.
well,
Yeah.
as you were talking about that you were fearful as a child, you were always scared and afraid. My first impact to
Mhm.
that statement was that you certainly did do a flip because you are fearless.
Well, that was the result, Star. Isn't that funny? Because whenever I tell people about my fearful childhood, they're always shocked. But praise God, all the fear came early in life. So now I don't fear anything. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that's not true. I'm sure I have some fears about stuff. When I feel a fear welling up in me, I want to address it. I want to suss it out. I want to understand what's going on. I want to get right in there because I spent enough of my life cowering in fear. And a lot of people are shocked when I tell them that that was my childhood, but it was.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to believe. It definitely
Mm-hmm.
is because you have done a what is it a 180? I always get it mixed up. 180, 360.
I
I
think it's
don't know.
360. It's 360,
Yeah,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, you've done a 360, and that's part of growth, and that's wonderful. Let me ask you about your jewelry making classes and
Mm-hmm.
and the energy and the processing that you do when you teach classes, because I also have been a part of that too at the retreat. What do you put
Mm-hmm.
into your classes? What do you put into your intention of how you're going to teach the classes? And of course, we know that it's all about creativity. So things turn out differently than maybe
Mm-hmm.
we expected them to or intended them to. But that jewelry making class was so awesome. So, talk a little bit about your creativity, spirituality, and all of that around jewelry.
Well, okay, so what brought me to, like I told you, I've been a jewelry designer since 2003, I believe. But what brought me to doing that cathartic jewelry making class was that I wanted to do a part, the most challenging part of the Release the On You session. One of the most challenging parts, I wanted to do it in a retreat. But because it's so challenging, you just really it's irresponsible to do it in such a short period of time without having a way to just to make sure that the participants are okay, that they're all right. So I came up with this clay, where we use polymer clay. And while we're talking about the difficult parts, we're working that energy, we're working the energy, we're working through what would be difficult, but we're working it into the clay. So we're making that clay warm. We're really getting out anything that would be stressful for us, that feels like a blockage, that feels like it's scary. We're working it through with the clay. And so then not only that, so we worked out the negative part or the uncomfortableness in that clay. So we have some place to put it. But not only that, then we take that same uncomfortableness that's inside of the clay, that same energy that's inside of that clay, and we convert it. We convert it into an affirmation. So everybody goes around the room and, well, I don't know if you got to that part, Star, because, we didn't, I don't know if we got all the way through that, but what the exercise is supposed to be, you go all the way around the room. Someone says something about you, the truth of who you are, what they see about you. What I see is Star is a beautiful health counselor. She's so wise. She's so well spoken. She's such a great writer. You know what I mean? That's what I see about Star. And then the next person goes and they say, well, I see Star is warm and she knows astrology and she's funny. And the next person says whatever they feel about Star. And then when you get to me, I come up with an affirmation. And the person writes that affirmation down. I am what we called you, Star, if I remember. You were You were you were star, light being.
Light
Is that what it
giver.
was?
Light giver, I believe.
Star, light giver.
Mm-hmm,
Yes.
mm-hmm,
Star, comma,
mm-hmm,
light giver. That's who you were.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. We did go all the way through it, didn't we?
Yes,
Yes,
and
we
I
did.
loved it.
So
It was
you were
so
star.
apropos.
Yeah, you were star, comma, light giver. And so whatever negative energy or uncomfortable energy that was put inside of that clay is now transmuted by that affirmation of who you are. So it's all you. Your whole experience has shaped who you are, but the truth of who you are is on top of all of that. And so you make that piece into something and then you can wear it. Then it's yours to wear and to know that that's who you are and never forget it.
Well, that affirmation was that new title was so apropos. I loved it. Star Light Giver. Mm-hmm.
Light giver.
Because
That's
I
right.
am definitely a
Mm-hmm.
giver, and star is short
Mm-hmm.
for starlight.
And what you give is filled with light. Yeah, but what you give is filled with light. You're always spreading light, giving us light, bringing light.
I
Star,
loved it.
light
Yes.
giver. Yeah.
Well, you are something else. So, Brooke, what's next? What's next on your list of wonderful achievements or things that you want to share with the world?
Well, I noticed that in my bio, you already talked about my second book. It's not quite released yet, but it will be by March. So I'm putting the finishing touches on that. And it's called Love God Herself, a guide of yoga and mindfulness for Black women who follow the Christ. So it is a book just encouraging, showing women who follow the Christ that there is another modality out there. There are other modalities out there for healing. So there's yoga, there's meditation, there's mindfulness. There are other modalities for healing. Not to throw away the Christianity that you believe in, but if you're looking for something more, something that will help you lower your blood pressure, that will help you be more physically fit, that will help you to breathe and relax and refocus, that will help with your flexibility and your strength and your releasing, then consider yoga and mindfulness as well. I know that traditionally in some Christian settings, we've been told that yoga and meditation is of the devil. Yes?
Yes.
Yes, it's
Yes.
true.
Yes, yes, yes. That's what we've been told.
That's what we've been told. Well, I have written a whole book with lots of biblical scripture, and really the main source of it comes from Jesus's commandments that we are to love God with our whole heart, mind, might, and soul, and also love our neighbors as we love ourselves. So I have broken that all down and into how there's an implication in the part where Jesus says love your neighbor as you love yourself. There's an implication, it's implied that we are to love ourselves first, because in Sunday school or Sabbath school, as I went to, we were taught love God first, love everybody else next, love yourself last. Well, if you look at that scripture, Jesus says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. So if the basis of loving your neighbor is what? Then yourself. It starts with you. You're the basis. Like, you know what I mean? You see what I'm saying? Like, it has to start with you first. Before you can love your neighbor, you have to establish that relationship with yourself. So that's what the book is focusing on, how to start establish that relationship with yourself and using yoga and mindfulness as a way to do that. So that should be released in March. Also coming up in March is my next retreat, which is going to be in coastal Georgia. So we are going to be on a house on the River Marsh in coastal Georgia, and then we're going to take the ferry over to Sapelo Island. We're going to do a beach ritual there. It's going to be a lot of quiet time, and it's called Say Yes. And so, what we're really going to try to do there is find our yes, because we have so many no's
Mm,
that we tell ourselves. We have things we want to do, and then immediately we say, I want to do this. And immediately in our mind, we say, but,
mm-hmm.
or how.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this retreat is really going to be about finding that yes and just saying yes
Do you have
and
the
making
date?
and letting. The date is March the 16th through the 18th. It's already sold out. So, yeah, it's already sold out. Um, in September, I have another retreat coming up in New Mexico. We're going to the southeast portion of New Mexico, and that will be 5 days. And I have to work out the details on that, but that is where we're going in September or October. And then I'm looking to plan my next retreat in June, because I want to do one every season, but I do not know where to do it. So if you have any suggestions on that, I would be open. I'm thinking of one in June. Will be in LJ in the mountains by the river, and the one that I'm doing in coastal Georgia, it was only room for 8 people. So the next one that I do in June, I think I may make it bigger, more people, maybe up to 16. But yeah, so that's what's happening with me. So I'm going to be more formal about my Bath and Body Products line. So I'm going to start selling that on my website in a more formal way. And okay, so I have the Mommy Wata Rising Conference, and that is coming up April the 13th through the 15th. And that is going to be in coastal Georgia as well. And I already told you that I have the self love event coming up. That's in Atlanta. That's for girls 9 through 14, and that's a free event for girls to come out. So in March, I have another event called Yoga and Yummies, and there is where I'll do my book release. And what that is it's going to be at the Aviation Center, and I believe it's March the 3rd. It is a class that's like 30 minutes of yoga and also teaching plant-based, home-style plant-based cooking.
And that's a great segue into the question that I was going to ask you about food and how it may or may not assist one in their journey into spirituality or as a light worker. Can you tell me about that? What your philosophy of food is, and give the listeners an idea of how you feed your body and the bodies of your family?
I was raised a Seventh-day Adventist. So my whole life, my philosophy has been one of mind, body, and spirit working together in and keeping your temple clean. And it matters what you put into your body. So I don't know if you know about Seventh-day Adventists, but a large percentage of them are vegetarian or strict vegetarian, which is now called vegan. Vegan, strict vegetarian is what we used to call it. Um, so that's been a part of my development since I can remember. My grandmother was a vegetarian for 50 years. So learning about herbs and vegetarianism and strict vegetarianism has just always been a part of me. And it's always been I've always been taught that it's a part of my spirituality as well, in terms of taking care of your body temple. So although I'm not Seventh-day Adventist anymore, I still have kept that way of being. I am not a strict vegetarian. I do eat fish occasionally. I don't eat dairy and eggs and things like that, but once in a while I will have fish, especially if it's fresh. So having said that, I am not my eating habits are not political like a lot of vegans. They eat that way because of political uh purposes, like they want to protect the animal world. And of course I do believe in protecting the animal world and the environment and keeping the environment safe, because the less meat that you eat, the better our environment is, because cows are eating up everything. I could just go on and about that, but I adhere to mostly about 90% plant-based living because of my health and because of keeping my faculties clear and clean, and because it allows you to reflect that light out into the world if you're not weighed down with your body having to process heavy things like meat and overly processed food and sugars. And so for the most part, I eat clean. Sometimes once a year I'll go raw and juice for a month, um or completely plant-based. I may cut out white products. I don't do a lot of white products, white sugar, things like that. So it's a lifelong journey for me to eat holistically, and to also encourage others to do that. I have a group called the Holistic Place on Facebook, where that's what we do all day, is try to encourage holistic living through clean living, because I do think it's essential to keep your body in order physically, by what you put inside of it, so that you can be your best self to give to the world and to experience the world in a positive way.
And I am one of your members on your page that I come all the time and get inspired
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. And I know that this month it's almost over, but this month you're also doing a cleanse, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so this one is a little
Yes.
different. Tell us about what you're doing differently this year, this month, than you've done in the past.
Well, for the last 5 years, I have done a cleanse in January. And I first started this when I lived in Texas, and I lived in Austin, Texas, and it was pretty warm in January. So I didn't, it was okay for me to drink juice and eat raw for a month, and I felt great and no problem. Then when I moved to Georgia, back to Georgia 2 years ago, I started noticing, whoa, it's pretty cold to eat raw in January. Even though I went on and I did it for the 30 days, it was terribly discomforting to me. And it wasn't super comforting. So I did it again last year, and I just kind of, when January 20th hit, I needed some real comfort because of that president getting sworn in. And so I don't even
That's
think
the
I finished
script. That's the script you're telling yourself. Okay.
that's a script I'm telling myself, exactly. So I didn't even finish off the rest of the year. I mean, the rest of the month. But I did in June, decided to do a raw and juice in June instead. So this year in January, one of the members said, "Are you going to do the cleanse this year?" And really, I was not planning to do it this year. I was planning to just shift it to June and leave it at June all the time. But she asked, and I said, "Well, sure, I'll do it." But as a service to myself and just to care for myself and for my own self care, I decided to just make it plant based. Go ahead and cook foods, keep it pretty clean, and I've been doing a good job. But I've just been a lot more relaxed on the weekends. When date night comes, I have alcohol, which I usually do not do. I've had a bun, bread, which I don't usually do. But I've just been a lot more relaxed for my own self care. It's been so cold here, like unseasonably cold, like ice and snow and 19 degrees. And we really don't get that in Georgia. So just to take care of myself. And I think this is so important. When you get on a regimen that is for your health, you have to listen to yourself as well. You can't be so rigid where you're just marching down a path just because you said you would. You know, Sometimes it's like, hey, I got to alter this. so that I'm not, grumpy and driving myself crazy. So for me, June will be my time from now on that I go raw and juice because it's warm and it's seasonable, and you can get the kind of vegetables and everything that you need, and you don't have to worry about freezing to death. So in January, just because everyone's in the flow of health and everything, I think it's okay to do, a cleanse. But personally, I didn't go all in. I'm going to wait till June for that to turn on my dehydrator and do all the raw stuff that I love, raw pizza and lots of juice and, different salads. I think June is more appropriate. Unless I move back to Texas.
Well, I have a new class that
Mm-hmm.
you can teach that you would have a lot of participants, and that would be jackfruit into the pulled pork class.
Well, I'm doing that this weekend. I'm doing that this weekend at Yoga and Yummies, actually.
Yeah. Oh, dang, for
Yeah, I am.
real? Oh, okay. Well, we need to advertise that because this year I was encouraged to do a 21-day Daniel fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a group on Facebook that is doing the Daniel fast. And one of the posts that I put up was about jackfruit.
Mm-hmm.
And it had the most comments of any of the posts that I've ever put up. And then other people put, like the fresh jackfruit and that kind of thing, how to do it.
Right.
And I've tasted your jackfruit 2 or 3 times now. I think maybe 3 times. And oh my gosh, it's the bomb diggity. But for whatever reason, I just have this resistance, this fear that I won't be able to do it as well as you and some of the other people that I've tasted it. So when I get back, I'm in the Pacific Northwest now, but when I get back, I'll take that class, girl, because I want to do the jackfruit. I think.
Well, absolutely. I may do it again in my Yoga and Yummies in March. But I'm definitely doing it this weekend. And I just love to make it, and everyone loves it, and it's so easy to make though. It's so easy to make, Star, and I know you're such a great cook. You can do it with no problem.
Okay, I'll be back then.
Yes, it's $35. It's 30 minutes of yoga, and they get lunch and demonstrations on home style vegan.
Okay, wonderful. Well, and because of this interview, I now have a new goal in life. One, read Love Gumbo and really get the lessons out of it. And then two, have you to be the officiant at my wedding.
Amen. And so it is.
And so it shall be. Thank you so much, Brooke.
You too. Thank you so much, Star.
And have an extremely wonderful day.
Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to The Wounded Healer Journeys into Amazing Health. If you enjoyed the show, spread the word. Also, go and subscribe. And while you're there, leave a 5-star rating and a review. We want to know your biggest takeaway from this episode. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Wounded Healer Podcast. Thanks again for tuning in. See you next time.